Hi, my name is Peggy LaPointe, and this is Talking Trash, a Green Tips podcast, a chance for me to dive into the world of environmental issues by talking to people in business, government, and nonprofits, folks knee-deep in the field of sustainability. Episode 9 features Chanel Hason, Chairwoman at Surfrider Portland, and Nancy Nordman, the nonprofit's Ditch the Straw PDX coordinator. We all met, well, Nancy and I met because we work at Metro, but we all met when Surfrider Portland was doing some bar crawls, and that was a whole lot of fun.
Yes.
And the bar crawls were for the Ditch the Straw campaign, which we'll get into in a little bit, but let's talk about Surfrider. Surfrider, I saw, started in Malibu in 1984. Took a couple of years. They were pretty sort of laid back about it because it's Malibu and they're surfers. And then really started getting going in 1991. Now, about what time did Portland get its own chapter?
Off the top of my head, I think we're about like 15 or so years old here in Portland.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
I won't, even though the microphones are on. I won't quote you on that.
I'm trying to get the stats from our volunteer coordinator. We just worked like 5 hours on a presentation yesterday for new Corps volunteers.
Nice.
That has all that info, and it's blanking my mind. So if I get it, I'll ring in and let you know.
All right. And the it's a nonprofit, and so really Surfrider is driven by volunteers. I mean,
correct.
Completely driven by volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all volunteers here on staff, so that's what makes it really special, I think, to be a part of, because everybody is motivated. They're willing to give their free time to it, and that makes it a great group of people to work with. So, I mean, for me, that's like why I've stuck with it year in and year out.
Yeah, relatively like-minded people. How long have you guys both been with Surfrider?
I was with Surfrider in Monterey when I was in my undergrad for a year or so, and then I've been with this Surfrider for a little over 2 years now.
Okay, and you, Chanel, are chair in communications. You're chairperson in communications.
Is correct.
Nancy, you are the Ditch the Straw coordinator, which was a very successful campaign that kind of, I don't want to say ended. I'm trying to think of my words, but I can't think of any words, but really came to a head at the end of the year. Again, we're going to talk about that because that Ditch the Straw campaign was very successful and something to be really proud of because there's some changes afoot. But let's talk about some of the other programs first. Surfrider is focused on keeping it clean upstream. It's about the water. Came from surfers. So some of the programs include the Ditch the Straw PDX, ocean-friendly restaurants, green streets, hold on to your butt. I just want to say that, and Blue Water Task Force. The green streets, I follow you guys on social media, so I see you guys taking photos of cleanup efforts around the Portland area. How often does that take place?
That takes place usually once a month, the first Tuesday of the month, and it's at various locations. And so usually we like to partner with breweries or restaurants that offer us free drinks and food afterwards for the volunteers. So
gotta motivate.
Yeah, I got to motivate people to clean the streets. So
that's for me.
Yeah, and
that's our next one.
Green Streets was actually how I got started with Surfrider too. That was my tie-in to it, just as a volunteer before I became a part of the leadership team. Was just going once a month and cleaning up, and it was just a fun way to meet people, fun way to. It was kind of like my circle of friends when I first moved to Portland. So,
yeah. Well, volunteering is a fun way to meet people and make friends. And so how long have you been with Surfrider, Nancy?
Well, I mean, I knew about Surfrider before I moved here. I was familiar with it. So when I moved here for grad school in 2015 or so, that was actually my first week here, and I was like, what am I going to go do? And I was like, I'll go to a chapter meeting. And so I went to a Surfrider chapter meeting and have been pretty steady volunteer since then, and then became a part of the exec team in 2017 officially.
Okay. So the Ditch the Straw campaign, I was looking over the website, and I saw that, it appears anyway, that the idea came out of a January session. You guys just had one last month, a January planning session in 2017. Is that right? About that time? Because there's the notes alluded to finding a campaign around a plastic item to get people motivated. I remember reading those notes, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a Rise Above Plastics sort of umbrella. Surfrider has always been pretty engaged and involved in plastic pollution. And so, I'm sure we'll get into this, but we sort of had a history with the plastic bag ban and styrofoam. So it was kind of like trying to figure out what would be a good next step to take under that sort of umbrella program. And so, the program really kicked off with Widmer in August of 2017. That was like our first pilot. So we kind of started thinking about straws, and then we sort of did this one pilot with them and then committed as a chapter to have that be the focus in December of 2017. So really like January 2018, we kind of kicked it off as like an official program.
Campaign started, I remember we were talking about it on the air at KINK. Because it wasn't just Surfrider, it was another nonprofit that was talking about, getting rid of straws. And we took it on in the fall of 2017 as well, because again, it's, folks say, well, it's just a straw. It's not a big item. And in the scheme of things, why not something bigger? But as you guys will probably say much more eloquently, because you're used to talking about these things, is that, you start with something small, and it starts a mindset. Do I really need the straw? Well, do I really need this, or do I really need this? But, plastic straws are also one of, I saw on your website, the biggest items, quantity-wise, that you folks are picking up, either in Portland or on the coast, on the beaches on the coast.
Correct, yeah. So we focused on straws, and it's kind of an easy gateway plastic, single-use plastic, for people to kind of examine their own personal lives and see what items do I really need to use that are single-use plastic that I can't have an easy replacement for. So straws is a good one. Do you really need a straw in your water? Unless you physically need it.
Yeah, and there are some that have a legitimate reason.
Totally.
But otherwise.
And we work with the ADA community when we were working with the governor and his staff to create the plastic reduction policy. So we're not trying to exclude anyone. We're just trying to decrease the abundance of single-use plastic in the city of Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it can apply to like really any single-use item that you think of. I mean, I know you've had on the radio, you've had Nosa Familia, and they talked about, they're just a fantastic example. I mean, they talked about their 25-cent upcharge for coffee cups. So, I mean, you can start applying the same thinking to any single-use item, really. But it's just straws are something that we find a lot in our Green Streets cleanups. They're so lightweight. They're really hard for recyclers. Yeah. I mean, they can't really deal with them
at all.
They're not recyclable, and they just end up loose because they're so lightweight and small. So, other things are, plastic water bottles. Plastic bottles are a big thing too, that we find in cleanups, but, those are a little easier to manage. So I think straws just made sense.
Yeah, definitely. And so you started working with different restaurants. Widmer was the first one on board. They've got a great sustainability team at their place. What were, St. Jack, I think, was another one. But what were some of the other businesses that were really enthusiastic about it?
I mean, Porque No did a lot of great graphics, and they did a lot of like testing out too. I think, they had some of big concerns just because they have margarita drinks and they have drinks that they want, they want people to be able to stir. They, mixing concerns. So they were playing with reusable stir sticks. They were really like diving into it. I think like really examining what worked. And they had signage up that was really visible to their customers. So they had one of the most dramatic reductions. I think it was around 90% reduction when they made the switch to straws on request. Posies has been a great advocate for us as a coffee shop, as well as Water Avenue Coffee. Water Avenue is one of our ocean-friendly restaurants as well. Yeah, there's been so many. It's been great.
I was going to say also Bamboo Sushi Restaurant Group. They're one of our ocean-friendly restaurants and super into everything sustainable.
I just spoke with Christopher a few days ago.
Awesome.
So yes, he'll be featured on a podcast as well before this.
Great. And then also the Pok Pok restaurant group too. They were really on board.
They were part of the pub crawl.
Yes, they were.
Had a drink.
Spirit of 77 as well, too. They've been fantastic.
Yes.
And then you also went in and talked to a bunch of restaurants and bars. And what did that look like? Because you worked hand in hand with these folks to help turn their mindset around, or if they were facing sort of trepidation about how do we approach this without offending our customers. What were some of the guidances that you were giving them?
Yeah, so it was usually a pretty gradual conversation. I started carrying around my Surfrider cards with my contact info, and just kind of whenever I was out and about and noticed that there was straws in a restaurant. Depending on like how busy they were, it was usually like a quick conversation with a server or a bartender, just like, hey, have you considered this, or have you thought about this? And you can kind of feel out how somebody's reacting. But usually it was kind of a matter of like leaving some information behind to get them thinking about it and saying like, hey, would you be willing to follow up? Right. Or can I follow up with you? Who would be the right person? So it's like really not rushing them to make a quick decision, but just kind of planting that seed and then hopefully coming back. And it was really great because there was a couple times when I would bring it up and the person next to me, who I didn't even know, it was just some random person, be like, oh yeah, I've heard that, or oh yeah, my neighborhood bar is doing that, so great. And it would just be like so automatic. I was like, thank you so much.
It's not a plant, I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of think of a lot of our exec team when we go out to dinner just on our own or lunch, and we're kind of like the straw police. And every time I
Friendly
see
straw.
yes, very with a nice smile.
Yes.
I always scope out if they do have plastic straws, and then like Nancy said, I'll leave my card or talk to somebody who works there and gauge an interest factor. And also it really helps for people in the community to use the hashtag Ditch the Straw PDX, because sometimes we find restaurants that we didn't even know were using alternatives, reusable or paper straws, and we're like, oh great, we can reach out to them and put them on our map on our website for participating businesses. So it's fun. There's a lot of changes happening, so
there
I'm
are
really
a lot
excited.
of changes, and there are a lot of choices with straws. One time when Nancy came into work, she had hay straws, and she's like, test this out and see if you can taste the hay, and I couldn't. It was pretty cool, and so you brought your straws with you as well. There are a lot of options. I mean, of course, there's a metal straw, and Court and I were talking the other day. He bought his family a set of metal straws. But you've got the paper ones. You've got the metal.
Glass.
There's
too.
glass. The glass makes, yes.
The glass is actually one of my favorites personally to drink out of.
Yeah.
Usually I just don't use a straw, but I like the glass a lot, but it's definitely, I would say, like a harder sell for most restaurants, understandably.
It's something that you want to keep at home. That's a nice thing to keep at home.
Yeah.
The metal straw you can stick into your bag. If you're a straw person. I'm not either. I don't like the feel of it.
Yeah. Some people have sensitive teeth and like to have one. So.
Exactly. And so the proposal, so you worked with a number of restaurants. You were getting this momentum going, and you worked towards a resolution that eventually passed in June. Working with City Hall and City Council, what was that like as you're getting ready for this resolution to pass? They were pretty enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I mean, they were very supportive, which was really nice. I remember, when my first experience testifying, so I mean, I hadn't ever testified in front of City Council, so it was nerve-wracking, but we had a lot of great coaching from Charlie, who's our statewide policy coordinator, a lot of support from him, and we also had a lot of other businesses come out and testify with us.
Oh, great.
Like Woodmere came, St. Jack's came. They gave glowing testimony on the resolution, so that was just like a really great confidence builder. So I think then once it came around to actually testifying for the policy itself, we had kind of had round one and knew a little bit what to expect.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to create policy with the right terms.
Right.
There's a lot of different factors and stakeholders involved. So the policy that we passed in Portland is actually the first one in the nation to address single-use condiment packaging.
Yeah.
Which is huge because you don't really think about that. You know, you go somewhere and you're like, hey, I'd like some ketchup, and they throw in 20 in your bag. And you're like, okay, well, I didn't need that many.
Right.
But you kind of, another thing that you focus on in your own life, like, oh, I didn't even think that was a plastic waste product.
Right.
We did a lot of hard work over like a year plus on that policy, working with the city. So we're really excited, and Nancy did an amazing job. She always doesn't take enough credit as she should, but she did wonderfully leading this whole campaign.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was a success. So take the pats on your back, Nancy. The end of 2018 is when the Portland City Council unanimously passed a plastic reduction policy. And as you sort of alluded to, it's a plastic serviceware, so straws, stirrers, utensils, the condiment packets. And these things aren't, just disappearing. They're being offered by request when you dine in. And then also put in place was an ask first policy for plastic serviceware for takeout and delivery services as well, which is, again, nice because I'll go to a takeout place and, I'm happy that it's a cardboard box, not with any, shiny plastic on it. And then they put all the other stuff in. I'm like, I didn't want that. And I always have to remember, no silverware, nothing. I'm just going home.
Right.
So it's nice that is put in place. Again, it makes you think, do I really need this?
Yeah, and I think it just, so often we're going back to an office place and more, office places are having kitchens that are fully stocked with reusable silverware.
Yep.
So it's just kind of like taking that extra moment to really think about whether you need it. And I love that it's changing that just sort of automatic give everything the customer could possibly need, even if they don't need it.
Right.
So.
It went through at the end of 2018. The ordinance takes effect in July, correct? July 1st?
July 1st.
The feedback that you were getting from restaurants, what was that like along the way? And what have you heard from restaurants as far as, for me, I would think they've got to be pretty happy that they're saving money. First of all. And number two, the fact that it's a citywide ordinance, it's, they may have wanted to take these stances, but were, again, concerned about backlash. And now it's an ordinance. And so it's just put into place. And so they don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. And I think some restaurants are excited that, they were kind of ahead of the curve. They kind of took the initiative on their own. And some are going, above and beyond the ordinance. Like you said, the ordinance doesn't ban plastic straws, but some have, made the decision on their own to switch to reusable metal straws or, make other changes to their practices. So, I think a lot of them are excited that that it's just going to kind of be the norm, and that they have alternatives to use too.
I want to go back because you guys mentioned the plastic bag ban. Surfrider was involved in that as well, and that was great. And I know that there is talk in Salem about a statewide. Is Surfrider involved in that conversation at all, or?
Oh, yes. So Charlie, as Nancy said, is our Oregon policy manager. So he's a paid staff member of Surfrider. And so he is our eyes and ears and mouth, basically, in Salem for protecting our oceans, waves, and beaches. So he's been relentlessly going into committees and talking to the House and Senate about all sorts of. We have a whole list of bills right now in front of me that he's been speaking on for single-use plastic bag, polystyrene, and also straws upon request. So there is a lot of momentum in Salem right now. So this is a really exciting year for us, especially with all these things on the ground moving and rolling. So we just have to kind of wait and see. How
great would it be to have a styrofoam ban in the state of Oregon for food?
Amazing.
That would be awesome.
Because you go outside. My kids play baseball, and so you would go to, various suburbs, and you'd get food and it'd be in styrofoam. Like, no, oh. You can tell you're out of Portland when you see the styrofoam.
I mean, it's such a problematic material. And I mean, we're really lucky here in Portland that we have, as you know, we have Agilex to help us recycle styrofoam. But, you know, even they have a lot of trouble with it. And for good reason. It's a really difficult material to use and to recycle. So,
well, and I live on the east side too. Yeah. So,
right.
I avoid it completely as much as I can because taking the drive from Southeast Portland to Tigard is not necessarily great unless I'm doing other errands. So to get it out of the waste stream as far as the food packaging would be great. And like California has shown, when a state like California takes on a ban like that, it does have ripple effects through the rest of the nation. And so, again, if Oregon can do that, hopefully it will help influence other things. And then I noticed that you've been talking about it on social media, the Rise Above Plastic Day in Salem coming up in March. Now, what's that about? Is that about these three particular bans or just an overarching sort of discussion?
Sort of both. It's a big campaign. Let me pull it up. I don't want to misspeak on who is all involved in it, but it's not just Surfrider. There's other nonprofits. But it kind of just is a huge awareness day of single-use plastics and why people should know about it and want to get involved. Here we go.
It's also go ahead. Like connected to, we're also doing like a Rise Above Plastics month as well.
Is that for the month of March?
It's going to be for May, actually.
For May. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's to raise awareness around the issue generally, but also to make sure people are aware of, what kind of policies are out there as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's mainly to learn about global plastic pollution problem, what efforts are happening in Oregon to rise above plastics, to also take a Rise Above Plastics pledge against single-use plastics, and to also meet your legislatures and kind of give face value of importance of this issue. And it's co-hosted with us, Surfrider Foundation of Oregon, Oregon Coast Aquarium, Solve, Oregon Shores, Environment Oregon, and this is funded by the NOAA Marine Debris Program.
Yeah. Well, and besides the fact that it's a huge waste problem, and if it's not going in the rivers and oceanways and all over the ground, it's going into the landfill where it's not doing us any good anyway. But there's also the health impact, which I talk about sometimes on Green Tips, is that these plastics are leaching chemicals into your foods and beverages. And so for a health standpoint alone, avoiding plastic is a good idea whenever possible. And so, the combination, I like when, the combination of those two messages are happening. Were you about to say something, Nancy?
Oh, I was just going to point out, I was just going to agree and say that, in the testimony process and in the stakeholder engagement, we had representatives from the health community, and it was just really great to see them recognize it as a health issue.
Yeah, so a huge health issue that I think is often overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
I want to wrap things up with the planning that happened on the Oregon coast last month for Surfrider. Is there anything that has come out of that planning session that you guys can talk about, that Surfrider, besides, the Rise Above Plastic Day and month, that you guys want to talk about and share?
Yeah, I think we kind of recommitted to, as you mentioned earlier, the ordinance doesn't go into effect until July. So just continuing to be an advocate and continuing to make sure that message isn't lost, just because the policy went through, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
And I think none of us, including, the city, wants restaurants to feel caught off guard.
Right.
That's not the intention.
No.
It's to hurt businesses. It's really to help them, hopefully save money and have a great environmental impact at the same time. So I think we want to continue to make sure that people are aware, that they have a lot of notice, that they know it's coming. So part of that, we got the screening rights for a documentary called Straws. So we're going to hopefully screen that with a bunch of schools through the Eco School Network, as well as some other partners. So I think just continuing to build that awareness, and then, as Chanel was kind of alluding to, just build the momentum to try and get people thinking not just straws, but what else? So maybe taking ditch the straw more to ditch the disposable.
Correct. That's what I was going to say, Nancy.
Words right
yeah. And also, we kind of want to focus on our ocean-friendly restaurants, which is a great national campaign from Surfrider, where a business restaurant group can kind of set their criteria straight on sustainability. And there's 5 main criteria, and they can pick 2 extra ones as well. And so that's all listed on our website, portland.surfrider.org, if you're a business listening to this and thinking you want to take the next step. And it's kind of like a registration. They get a sticker. They're listed on the national website and on our website as a ocean-friendly option. So if you want to support a business that is doing a lot to protect the environment, that is a really great way to do so.
And are you still doing outreach with restaurants and bars for the Ditch the Straw, helping to raise awareness, helping them to ease into this transition?
Yeah, I'm still continuing to reach out. We do have a Google form on our website that's still up and still running. So if you're a business and you want to make the switch now, or even if you just want to have a conversation around, I've started to have a lot of conversations around how to not just get rid of straws, but look at plastics and their whole process. Happy to connect with businesses awesome. And continue to help them out finding alternatives.
So any business, any person wanting to know more about either the Ditch the Straw PDX, ocean-friendly restaurants, green streets for volunteers, I noticed that there's a volunteer sign-up front and center on the website, and then they can go to the website. They can reach out to either of you or anyone on staff, and go pick up garbage in the green streets and have a beer afterwards at a pub.
Yeah,
I think that sounds awesome. Nancy and Chanel, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Very excited.
Thank you for joining me for my conversation with Chanel Hason and Nancy Nordman of the nonprofit Surfrider Portland. If you've missed any of the previous podcasts, you can find them at our website at KINK.FM. Be sure to like and subscribe to Talking Trash, a Green Tips podcast on Apple iTunes or wherever you're listening. Talking Trash is a podcast series featuring people in business, government, and nonprofits, and sometimes just regular folks in the Portland area and around Oregon who are having an impact in the world of sustainability.